Wicked did something unheard of. It was the first Wizard of Oz related smash hit in 85 years. Arguably, it's the only successful Oz movie not called The Wizard of Oz, and that's not for lack of trying. Hollywood and the rest of the world have been trying to make a sequel or prequel or remake for decades, and failing miserably in some of the strangest projects you've ever seen. People sometimes refer to the 1939 Wizard of Oz movie, the one everybody's seen, as the original, but that's wrong, very wrong. Technically, it's a remake of a remake.
No, fool that I am, I should have remembered.
Yes, you of all people should have known. If you include shorts, this famous classic is the 11th Oz movie overall. There are so many Oz adaptations, we can't even talk about them all here without taking half your day. There are more movies here than the James Bond franchise, and they're all weirder than Moonraker. Let's go back to the start. Author L. Frank Baum published his novel The Wonderful Wizard of Oz in 1900 as a political allegory about keeping American money on the gold and silver standard. It's why the road is yellow and Dorothy's shoes were originally silver. That's weird enough already. The book was quickly adapted into a 1902 stage play, so no, Wicked didn't invent that idea, and Baum himself worked to bring his story to the screen. The first attempt came in 1908 with the Fairy Log and Radio Plays, which was a mix of radio play, live performance, and projected still images, with Baum performing as himself. In 1910, a proper film, a silent 15-minute adaptation of the stage play, hit theaters. At least 2 sequels were made, but they're now lost. More related films, produced and written by Baum, came in 1914. The Patchwork Girl of Oz, His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz, and The Magic Cloak of Oz. They all failed. Baum died in 1919, so we never got to see a story really take off on film. Finally, a proper feature-length silent film version was released in 1925 titled The Wizard of Oz. Baum's son co-directed it. It's quite different from the book or the play, with far more characters and subplots. Farmhands from the Kansas farm take up a lot of screen time, and the politics of Oz are a big focus. According to TMZ, the company behind the film, Chadwick Pictures, went bankrupt during its promotion. Lots of theaters never even received their prints of the movie. Baum's son then went on to write yet another doomed adaptation, an animated one, that was released in 1933. MGM took a big gamble on The Wizard of Oz in 1939. Not only was the franchise proven to be a box office loser so far, it was the studio's most expensive production ever at the time. William Stillman, author of The Wizardry of Oz, the artistry and magic of the 1939 MGM classic, told the LA Times that the movie didn't recoup all of its costs during its initial release, despite being a moneymaker for its time. The Wizard of Oz didn't actually turn a profit until it was re-released in 1949, and most people never saw it until it was broadcast on TV in 1956. It was those TV broadcasts, which became an annual tradition until the early 1990s, that made the movie the most watched film of all time, according to the Library of Congress.
Coming soon on CBS, a timeless classic returns.
All that likely explains why there was no theatrical follow-up to The Wizard of Oz until 1969. That film, The Wonderful Land of Oz, was far from the lush, big-budget affair that its predecessor was. It was a low-budget flick that played in kiddie matinee theaters. Its director, Barry Mahan, had made a long list of adult films in the preceding years. It adapts Baum's second book, The Marvelous Land of Oz, and follows new protagonist Tip. But The Wonderful Land of Oz leaves out a lot of plots and characters. It ultimately looks and feels very cheap, like a filmed version of a community theater production. No wonder Judy Garland reportedly turned down narrating it. At this point, it's probably best known for riff tracks making fun of it.
Yeah, the kid falls asleep. Can you just cut to the kid being asleep? We'll believe it happened!
Filmmakers were working on an Oz film sequel as early as 1962, but that animated project, Journey Back to Oz, took a full decade to finish and get on movie screens. It's another loose adaptation of The Marvelous Land of Oz, and it definitely has some things going for it that The Wonderful Land of Oz didn't. For one, the animation actually looks fairly professional, and it landed Garland's daughter, Liza Minnelli, as the voice of Dorothy, who isn't in the book but got shoehorned into the movie. Some other stars also took on voice roles, including Mickey Rooney, Paul Lynde, and Milton Berle. It makes sense that the screenwriters and director Hal Sutherland would want to bring Dorothy back. The Marvelous Land of Oz is not a particularly audience-friendly sequel. With Dorothy back in Kansas and the Wicked Witch of the West dead, the book brings in the aforementioned Tip, an orphan who is secretly the rightful ruler of Oz, Princess Ozma. Then there's new villain Mombi, another witch. It also introduces new hero Jack Pumpkinhead, who, has a pumpkin for a head and a body made out of tree limbs. Journey Back to Oz dumps Tip, replacing him with Dorothy, but keeps Mombi and Pumpkinhead. Yet even with Dorothy there, it can't make its convoluted story involving internal Oz politics and green elephants trampling Mombi to death work. The movie flopped in theaters, but did find some life in later TV broadcasts. Of all the Oz-related films we talk about here, The Wiz is probably the one you've most likely heard of or even seen. Like Wicked, it's based on a very popular and award-winning stage musical. Unlike Wicked, though, the movie flopped. The stage version of The Wiz debuted in Baltimore in 1974, then went to Broadway the following year. The idea had a lot of appeal. A retelling of The Wizard of Oz with an all-black cast, an urban setting, and new, more soulful songs. The subtitle was even the super soul musical Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The stage version's success naturally led to a film adaptation, and that 1978 movie was stacked. Sidney Lumet of Dog Day Afternoon and Network directed. Diana Ross played Dorothy. Michael Jackson was the Scarecrow. Richard Pryor was the Wizard.
Everything they say about me's true. I'm a phony.
It should have been a huge hit, right? Well, it wasn't. Time Note said it was the most expensive screen musical ever made at the time. According to Charles Harpole's History of the American Cinema, it lost Universal more than $10 million. So what went wrong? You could blame it on bad reviews. Critics panned the movie, saying Lumet wasn't a fit for the material, it was too long, the sets were ugly, and that the 34-year-old Ross was too old to play Dorothy. Some said Joel Schumacher's script didn't adapt the stage version very well, though almost everyone agreed the singing was great. It did so poorly that it's been blamed for Hollywood studios avoiding movies with all-black casts for years afterward. Before The Wonderful Land of Oz, there was an attempt to do something else with the Oz franchise, on TV. In 1961, the company that became Rankin Bass distributed the animated series Tales of the Wizard of Oz, which ran for about 4 months. The episodes were 5-minute vignettes in which the wizard tried to grant some character's wish. In 1964, NBC aired an hour-long Rankin Bass-produced Return to Oz special, which served as a sequel to the Tales of series, but basically just retold the story of the Wizard of Oz. 2 anime versions of The Wizard of Oz came out in Japan in the late 70s and early 80s. 4 1978 episodes of the show Manga Fairy Tales of the World condensed Baum's original book into about 10 minutes. Then, in 1983, another anthology of fairy tales from around the world, Toei's world-famous fairy tale series, got released theatrically, with The Wizard of Oz short-clocking in once again at 10 minutes. Another animated special, Thanksgiving in the Land of Oz, ran on CBS in 1980. It has Pumpkinhead, the Hungry Tiger, Tin Man's successor Tick-Tock the Mechanical Man, and a talking pie named UN Crust. They all celebrate Thanksgiving, and it ends with Dorothy's aunt and uncle moving to Oz. Not to be confused with the animated special of the same name, 1985's Return to Oz is definitely in the running for the weirdest Oz sequel of them all, and you can stream it on Disney+. That's right, Return to Oz was a Disney production, and yet it is bafflingly dark. The movie starts with Dorothy, who we must stress is still a child, being taken to a sanitarium and treated with electroshock therapy because she's too obsessed with Oz. It gets stranger from there. If anything, it's way too faithful to the original books, which can often be dark. The movie adapts both The Marvelous World of Oz and Ozma of Oz, so Pumpkinhead, Mombi, Ozma, and Tick-Tock are there. There's also the Gump, who's kind of a moose guy, and a talking chicken named Bellina.
Oh, I've never been so wet my whole life.
As for the characters you know and love, it ain't good for them. The Scarecrow is the King of Oz, but he's being held prisoner by the Gnome King. The Emerald City has been totally devastated, with the Cowardly Lion and Tin Man both turned to stone. And of course, we can't forget these rolling nightmares.
Come here, chicken!
If that sounds upsetting, the entire rest of the film seems specifically designed to make children cry. Critics called it a horror show. All of Dorothy's friends get turned into ornaments. The Gnome King is killed by Bellina laying a poisoned egg in his mouth. It's a lot. There is a happy ending where Dorothy goes home, the sanitarium burns down, and she learns Oz is a real place, not just a dream. But how many kids even manage to get there? An Oz anime finally got more than 10 minutes in 1986, with the 52-episode Wonderful Wizard of Oz. The series adapts the first 4 of Baum's books, and HBO picked it up in 1987 for broadcast with English voice acting. The series was pretty inarguably the most successful piece of Oz media since the 1939 movie. A US-made 1987 direct-to-video short film titled Dorothy Meets Ozma of Oz attempts to tell the Ozma story yet again in 28 minutes. A series of Polish animated theatrical shorts ran in theaters in Europe in the 1980s, with some eye-popping and colorful animation. In 1990, ABC aired a 13-episode animated series that basically retells the story of the 1939 movie, with some visuals changed to capitalize on the popularity of The Little Mermaid. A 1992 anime titled The Wonderful Galaxy of Oz puts Dorothy and other Oz characters in a futuristic space setting. It ran for 26 episodes. It seems like a match made in heaven, the Muppets doing a funny adaptation of The Wizard of Oz, a movie everyone and their Auntie Em has seen. Yet, The Muppets Wizard of Oz didn't light up the ratings when it aired on ABC in May 2005. According to ABC MediaNet, it was the 42nd most watched program of the week. Not terrible, but not great either. Critics' assessments of the TV movie shed some insight on the lukewarm response. Singer Ashanti played Dorothy, and it was clear she was a professional musician, but not a professional actor. The change to the story of her wanting to become famous rather than just wanting to get back home to Kansas sort of fundamentally undermined the whole point of The Wizard of Oz too. Others just didn't think the Muppets had the comedic spark they once did. The celebrity cameos were also pretty odd. Quentin Tarantino shows up at one point to talk about ways to violently kill the Wicked Witch.
The gals whip out these huge samurai swords, and they just tear it up.
Notably, The Muppets Wizard of Oz was the last Muppets project in the US, aside from a TV Christmas special until the whole franchise got rebooted with 2011's The Muppets. Something was in the water in the 1990s where animation studios loved the idea of legacy characters taking over for their famous movie relatives. Remember James Bond Jr. or the far future set Highlander cartoon? Probably not, but they existed. There was an Oz version of that too, The Oz Kids. It was a 9-episode direct-to-video series from 1996 about the children of Dorothy and Zeb, who was, her distant cousin. The Lion, Scarecrow, Tin Man, Wizard, Glinda, and even Pumpkinhead all have kids too, and they go on adventures both on Earth and in Oz. Fast forward to 2007, and the makers of Oz-related media were trying to follow the trend of darker, more adult-oriented versions of children's media. Enter the Sci-Fi Channel's Tin Man, a 3-episode miniseries which had some big names, like Zooey Deschanel and Alan Cumming. Instead of Dorothy Gale, Deschanel plays the more mysterious DG, and Oz is now OZ, the Outer Zone. Critics noted that the mini took its cues from popular films like The Matrix and Blade Runner. It was watched by a lot of people, but not especially well received. Critics thought it was too grim and a mess. So if going dark didn't work, how about adding a violent cat and mouse? Yes, there were 2 direct-to-video films in 2011 and 2016 where Tom and Jerry came to Oz and brought their slapstick antics with them. The first basically just adds Tom and Jerry and their constant maiming of each other to the 1939 movie. The second serves as an adaptation of the book sequels. If it wasn't already pretty clear by now, the 1900 book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is in the public domain. It has been since 1956, in fact. So anyone can make a Wizard of Oz movie as long as it doesn't include elements from the 1939 movie, which is still under copyright. That's how director Hugh Gross and Breaking Glass Pictures were able to make After the Wizard, a 2011 direct-to-DVD pseudo-sequel to The Wizard of Oz. Instead of basing the story on any of Baum's book sequels, which admittedly had not worked out for anyone up to that point, it tries a whole new approach. Rather than getting into the arcane politics and history of Oz, it brings the Scarecrow and Tin Man, but not the Lion, who dips out, to Kansas. A lot of the movie's attempts at humor come from them not understanding how Earth works, like they don't know what children are despite having met Dorothy.
Look, Munchkins! In prison?
No!
In the end, the movie winds up feeling like an after-school special, with melodramatic and maudlin explorations of Dorothy's mental health and her post-Oz life. It's not very fun and not much of an adventure. Also, the makeup is terrible. Here's another attempt to make The Wizard of Oz into a more mature drama. Originally released as a TV miniseries in Europe, Dorothy and the Witches of Oz was re-edited into a 2012 film. It was theatrically released, despite aggressively feeling like a cheap direct-to-video offering. The director, Lee Scott, has mostly made those infamous rip-offs of popular movies for production company The Asylum, notably Transmorphers and Pirates of Treasure Island. Scott's miniseries and movie follow a grown-up Dorothy who has become a children's book author and moved to New York. Her books are all based on her repressed memories of Oz. Her memories come flooding back when the Wicked Witch of the West suddenly appears in Times Square, leading to more witches, including Mombi showing up. The Gnome King also appears, confusingly played by pro wrestler Al Snow. Other casting choices are confusing too, but because they're actually famous. Christopher Lloyd plays the Wizard. 2 Lord of the Rings alums, Billy Boyd and Sean Astin, appear. Mia Sara from Ferris Bueller's Day Off plays one of the witches, and Jeffrey Combs plays L. Frank Baum. At least the writers and Scott were having fun, even if no one else really was. In 2013, Disney took its third swing at making another Oz film, despite Return to Oz and The Muppets Wizard of Oz being disappointments. They brought in a cast of A-listers and a director with a proven track record of box office success, Sam Raimi, for the film Oz the Great and Powerful, which was a prequel that aimed to spin a compelling backstory for the wizard. James Franco plays Oscar Diggs, the man who would become the wizard, who works in a traveling circus and is a bit of a con man. After a strongman catches him making moves on his wife, Diggs escapes in a hot air balloon and gets whisked to Oz in a tornado. The movie likewise provides an alternate origin story from Wicked for the Wicked Witch of the West. Mila Kunis's character, a native witch named Theodora, is manipulated by her older sister Evanora, played by Rachel Weisz, into eating a cursed apple that turns her into the Wicked Witch. The movie provides lots more explanations of Oz lore, including the wizard's use of theatricality and stage illusion.
In the Conjuring business, flash is always good. Gives the audience a little wow.
It actually did okay at the box office, turning a small profit, but critics were mixed on it at best. In the Huffington Post, writer Marshall Fine wrote, "Even a sophisticated grade schooler will find these doings weak and overblown." The film is all but entirely forgotten now, just over a decade after its release. Writing about its 10th anniversary for Paste in 2023, B.L. Panther noted, "Oz the Great and Powerful was released to a general shrug from critics and audiences alike, and today remains the outlier in Raimi's otherwise celebrated filmography. The collective rejection of Oz the Great and Powerful is more exciting than the film." In 2017, NBC tried one more mature take on Oz with the series Emerald City, which makes Dorothy a 20-year-old played by Adria Arjona. The idea was to retell The Wizard of Oz as a sort of gritty crime drama. In the very first episode, Dorothy finds a dead body, gets taken to Oz while trying to run away from the police, and talks the Wicked Witch of the East into shooting herself with a cop's gun. Fun, right? The series even makes Oz a pretty dark place. Magic is outlawed, and the wizard orders Dorothy killed, making her a fugitive. Critics said it was an attempt to mash up The Wizard of Oz and Game of Thrones. And yeah, the Munchkins are reimagined as like Viking warriors. There are even multiple torture scenes. Emerald City did not ride the Game of Thrones popularity wave though, and NBC thankfully canceled it after just 10 episodes. It's no mystery how Wicked for Good is going to fare at the box office. It's pretty well guaranteed to be a big hit. The buzz is huge, but it's also only a sequel in the most technical sense. Yes, it's another movie, but it's really just the second half of the story, in that it's literally adapting the second act of the stage musical. It's pretty much a sure thing Wicked will once again do what no one else could, packing in audiences and wowing critics with another Oz movie. The real question here is, can they do it after that? Given how well Wicked did, it was the third biggest movie of 2024 in the US and fifth biggest worldwide, you'd have to think Universal would want to capitalize with another big release. But what do? There's no more musical to adapt, and woe be to anyone who tries to put Mombi and Ozma on a film. We've seen how that goes. And For Good includes the events of The Wizard of Oz.
There's a house, and it's flying through the sky.
Though a remake in the Wicked world seems unlikely. Maybe screenwriters Winnie Holzman and Dana Fox, along with director John M. Chu, can come up with an idea for a sequel that continues the story and pleases crowds. Maybe they'll even adapt one of the Wicked book sequels. But history, as you now know, isn't exactly on their side.